I started working as a doctor, and after a few years of residency, I made this realization that medicine isn't well suited to my personality, right? So, and the reason for that is, um, I personally, I'm most energized by trying new things, but as a doctor, you should be energized by getting better and better at the same thing, right? That's what medicine is all about. You never want to hear a doctor say, "Oh, that's really interesting. I've never seen this before." No, you want the doctor to have seen it 1,000 times before. And it just turned out that I wasn't really cut out for this.
What was the rationale for starting ZocDoc? I mean, how did the idea come to you? What was the need? To just tell me about that.
Yeah, so great question. So my co-founder, Cyrus, actually had the initial idea, and his problem was that he had ruptured his eardrum while flying with a cold, and we were both working at McKinsey. We had gold-plated insurance. It was still very difficult for him to find someone because many didn't accept his insurance or they were booked out, and when he went to the insurance directory and started calling down the names of the doctors starting with an A, it turns out many providers weren't taking that insurance anymore, or some had even passed away. So it was an incredible experience. And so we had lunch together, and he asked, well, why is it so hard for patients to access care, and why is there a simple way to find and book it online? And we both spent time in McKinsey's healthcare project, so we knew that millions of dollars were spent by providers to grow their patient base and reach patients who need care. Yet at the same time, there was sort of that patient demand, and it is interesting because it was so contrarian to what was believed back then. Everyone thought there might be a doctor shortage, and that's why it's hard to get in. But we realized the doctors had last-minute cancellations, no-shows, reschedules, and that there's a lot of hidden inventory that just needs to be surfaced, and you can create a win-win between patients and doctors. Look, I think many times when you read value statements from companies and say, "Oh, we are honest and integrity and smart and hardworking and what have you," and yeah, I mean, sure, those are unalloyed goods, and you should obviously have them versus the opposite. But what values really should be, there should be principles by which you make the difficult decisions in life, right? Should I go for speed or flawlessness, right? Like that's a decision that a value helps you to make. And so when we looked at the Zocdoc values, each one of them gives you a trade-off on a dimension that is important in sort of tragic decisions, where it's not right against wrong, but it's right against right. Like each one of those could very well be a maxim for someone to live by, and so that's, I think, a slight difference in the way that we've constructed our values versus how many other value systems are just an enumeration of good attributes we want people to have. But your question is very real when it comes to, okay, how does it become more than just lip service, right? And I think I have this saying where it's very, you can teach a turkey how to climb a tree, but you're better off hiring a squirrel, right? And so we are, a lot of this has to be in all the talent processes, right? So we have mapped our values actually to competencies that we use in hiring, and we do competency-based interviews to make sure that people have the attributes that are required to sort of live up to our values. And we also have this flow into our performance review process, and ultimately it flows into promotion decisions, right? So this way we ensure that the people that we have are squirrels and squirrely, and they can live these values. And then the second part of it is, once you have the right group of people on board, then you need to have rituals and traditions to make them real. And we have loads of those, right? We have what I think is a very nice tradition of what we call Zoc props. So every team member can give any other team member a shout out. We have a system that allows us based on, hey, this example of what this person just did shows how she or he lived up to this and this value. And then we actually pick an exec every week to talk in our all hands meeting about an employee that lived up to a value.
So if somebody has an issue with important versus immediate, and you're on this all hands deck call, it would be totally acceptable for them to actually bring that up and say, hey, Oliver, it feels like you're focusing too much on this short-term goal, versus a more long-term strategic thing. Is that something that would be fair to say, and have they said that? And, how did you feel and how did you react if they did say that?
I mean, look, it's critical. It's critical. I mean, I actually highlight frequently the people that bring up these questions most, to make sure that everyone sees that it's a very encouraged behavior. Absolutely. And I'll say that the single most frequent value that we discuss during decision making is probably patients first. And with everything we do, we look at, that's a must check nearly, and it usually comes up very, very organically. And we absolutely, there are lots of things that we could be doing, but that we're not, because we don't believe there are patients first.